Hi everyone, so today we are going to be making the Fibre Mood Uzma top, which was in issue number 23, so this was from 2 years ago now. This is a really great top for when you have bits of fabric left over. If you have a smaller piece, like maybe a 1 meter piece of some really precious fabric, this is a great top for using it. You can actually get it from even smaller pieces if you just cut the outer part from the main fabric, and then you can use something else for the facing. But you can see here it's a really cute square neck boxy top, very easy to lengthen if you're not a fan of the crop. But yeah, it is a great wee summer staple. So we will get started. I have all my pieces prepared here. So we have our front and back are overlocked at the side seams and then up at the shoulders. And then we have the back, and then we have the two facings here. So this fabric was left over from my Ramona dress, and whenever I seen the pieces that were left, I knew I would have enough to do this too. So the facings, I have actually cut these in two and stitched them together, and then put the interfacing on with it. Sort of the interfacing was cut on the fold. So this is something that you can do if you have smaller pieces left over. If you can't get this on the fold, the facings can be done on the fold, but try and keep the outer parts, the facings can be done in two. Try to keep the outer parts cut in one on the fold. So we have the shoulders overlocked here as well, the sides, and then this bottom edge. So that should be most of the overlocking done at the start. And now we can get straight on with the construction. So it is a very, very simple, it's the sort of top I think once you make it once, you will want to make a lot more of them. So we're starting off with our shoulder seams, front to back, and then we will repeat this with the facings as well. So I'll get them all pinned in the one go here. This fabric has been incredible to work with. It is so lovely, so handles really well, sews really well, presses really well, just absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really excited to have these new garments that I will be able to wear. They'll definitely be packed and coming with me on holiday. My daughter has seen it and she now wants something made in this as well. And I have a feeling I could convince the boys to wear the blue colourway with the white print. We could do a full family matching on holiday, which we probably would love. So yeah, we're going to pin all these and then get them all sewn. So that is those seams sewn and pressed open flat. Now we're just going to trim off these corners. So the edges of the facing here, we are just going to snip these off at an angle and then trim off these extra bits of overlocking thread too. So this will reduce the bulk at the shoulder where this seam allowance is. The two seam allowances are going to meet, and you don't want that area to be too bulky. I'm using our Lisa Taylor scissors, which came in the boxes or the bags this month, and they are so sharp. Really handy. Just going to trim this wee bit of interfacing. Okay. Now do the same with these ones. So this is all covered in your pattern instructions, but you can see here it's just coming in at an angle then, and it does reduce that bulk in the shoulder seams. And the next step is to attach the facings to the neckline. Now I think, well, I'm not sure what everyone's feelings are about a square neckline. I personally really like them. I think they're great if you are not a fan of sewing curved areas. It's a lot easier to sew in a straight line. So we have our main top face up. We'll move this over out of the way. Bit more room. So the main top face up. The front has a single notch here on the arm side and the back has a double notch. And then on the facing, the front has this extra curved bit coming down, whereas the back is just a wee bit straighter. So we're going to pin these in place, start with the shoulders, match them up. And then there are notches, they're drill marks, the wee tailor tacks or dots, whatever way you wanted to mark them, at the square, which will help you get a nice accurate point. So we can see here I have them marked just with a bit of thread with a tailor tack. You can also, I would say on the facing will be the best place to mark this. You can draw on where you want where your seam lines are supposed to go to. So if you actually mark a line here and then a line here, that'll make it a wee bit easier for you to then make sure you start and stop at the right point. I think, just check here. So our seam allowance is 1 centimeter. I mark these. So pin my dots together first to make sure they're even. And then I'm going to use our wee generate seam guide, which was in one of the first boxes, just to mark where that is going to be. Yes. So we are just going to use our We're just going to use our seam guide here to mark a wee corner, and that's where the stitching will start and stop. It can be helpful to have that visual guide as well so that you don't miss your mark. So you can see here, we've just got a wee line there, and that's going to help me figure out where to start and stop and turn when I'm sewing this neckline. So we're going ahead and pin the rest of it and then sew around. So I have started and stopped on the back neckline. It's a better idea to start on one of these straight edges here than in a corner, so that you're going around the corner in one smooth go and you don't end up overshooting the end just by a wee stitch or two. So yeah, that is, I kept the needle down as I was sewing so that the needle was down, and I was just pivoting as I was going round. Now the next step is to snip into these corners here, and you do want to get fairly close to your stitching without snipping right through. So again, these wee scissors, they're so sharp, they're perfect for this sort of thing. So you're not getting, you don't have a big blade in the way or anything like that. And then our next step will be to understitch all of these areas. Now you won't be able to understitch right up into the corner. So we'll be starting and stopping about 1 centimetre away from the corner, just to make sure if you go right to the corner, it's not going to fold out as crisp. And you want to make sure that all that facing stays tucked in, especially if you've used a different fabric for the inside parts. Get rid of all these tailor tacks now. So we will go ahead and understitch the whole way around. For anyone who's new to understitching or still not quite sure, you are stitching the seam allowance to the inside, to the underneath side of the garment. So it's stitching that will only be seen from the wrong side. So from here, we've got our facing on this side with the interfacing. This could also be your lining. You're pulling your seam allowance over to this side and then stitching here close to the seam line. Personally, I prefer to do it from the top to make sure that the fabric doesn't get caught in underneath. But yeah, and then just a couple of millimeters away, as close as you can get, as long as you have caught this seam allowance down in here, then and you can feel as you're sewing that this side has the thicker part, and that is going to help the overall finish of the garment. So now we have our neckline all understitched, and you can see it's sitting very flat there now. We are going to sew the arm size next. To do this, you'll need to do each side in 2 parts. So we're going to start with one side, and if you fold your facing back in, so you're sort of pinching these edges here at the side seams in together, and then we'll start pinning up from there. So it can feel a wee bit complicated, but we can't do necessarily a burrito here. You could roll each one into each strap, but it's going to be quite tight getting the full top through the strap. It's not that thick. It's a thick strap, but it's not really big enough. And with the linen, you would be more prone to it fraying, and you don't want to end up with holes in your top from the fabric fraying too much once it's been turned out. It just can put the seam under quite a bit of pressure. So you're just going to go as far as you can on one side. So you can see it's all sort of pulling up in. So we're going to sew this side, turn it out, and then go from the other side. You really need to be careful here that you're not getting anything caught underneath. Take your time. So that is one half sewn there, and then we're just going to have to go around to the other side here and do the same thing. So we can probably start from where we've just sewn, pinning there from this side. Because you've got one side sewn, it gets a wee bit easier to pull through. If we get it to there, matching your shoulder seams. So if this top had a center back seam, it would be a wee bit easier to do your burrito that way. You wouldn't have just as much to pull through. And then we're going to sew this side. And the next step will be to clip into the curves. So just do our wee triangles out of the curves to open them up and then understitch that. So we have our facings all sewed on now and understitched as far as we can. You will only be able to get about halfway up really before it starts to get too tight. The next step is going to be sewing your side seams together. So we'll be doing this all in one go. So matching your seams here at the underarm, going the whole way down, facing and outer in one stitch. Then after that we just have to hem it. So it is, after you get that sort of trickier part done with the arms, it's very much plain sailing from there, and you don't have too much more to do. So the pattern does come with quite a deep hem, so you can fold it up quite a lot. I'll probably only do a smaller hem. It's still going to be quite deep, but not just as deep. I want it to have a wee bit more length. It is the sort of pattern, it's very easy to lengthen. It is just a straight seam or straight hem at the bottom. So if you wanted to add any length to it, it certainly is very easy to do. Or you could take it even further with this one. I think you could add on a gathered skirt, which would be quite nice, and make it into a dress, or just lengthen it and make it a little bit more A-line, and that's going to give you like a little shift dress to wear over the summer as well. So we're going to sew these. I will overlock the bottom edge and then just turn it up and hem it. The last step is going to be adding a little snap fastening on the inside of the straps here to put around your bra, and this will stop, because it is such a wide strap, it does have the tendency to sort of slip down a wee bit, and this will just hold it securely in place. So I have just these little snap fasteners here. Unfortunately I only have black in my stash at the moment, so we're going to sew one side on first. So we have this one on first onto one side. So you can use, I'm going to do a thread loop here, but you can also use, if you have a darker fabric, so the blue colorway, you can use the twill tape that our fabrics come wrapped in, tied up in, or any other bits of ribbon that you have, if you don't want to do the wee thread loop. And you're just going to do the same thing, hand sew the button on, or one side of the snap on, and then sew the other side onto the ribbon. So we are just sewing this on here. then just tie it off. So I'm not going to cut the thread. I'm just going to bring it back through. So over about 2 centimeters here. And what you're going to do, you're going to bring your thread, your needle back in through this far. If you hold, so you're going to hold your thread with 2 fingers here and reach through and pull the other bit. So the bit that's attached to the needle here, we're just pulling that through and then tightening it. And you just keep doing that. And you'll end up with a little chain of knots. You want to make sure you have a good long piece of thread for this too, because it uses quite a lot. So you just keep making your loop and then pulling the thread through, and that is just about reaching over to the snap, and then bring your needle back in through that wee holder, and then we're going to attach the other side of the fastener on here. So just, you'll not be sewing this to any fabric. So we'll create a wee knot there first to hold it in place. And let's see, yep. So then that'll clasp there. Obviously, if your bra strap is quite thick, you'll know what bra you're most likely going to wear. You'll want to make this a wee bit wider. Yeah, I'll just do a few more wee knots through here. Maybe do an extra one on the other side. And that's you. That's your little thread loop, and then we have enough knots tied there, hopefully, that this is not going to come undone. And then just snip the end off. There we go, and that will then stop your straps from slipping down and you don't see anything from the outside. So that's the side seam sewn, hem sewn, and I ended up going for a 1-inch hem, so it's deep enough, but it's still got enough length for me. I'm happy enough with it. The last step that we have is just to secure the facings to the underarm seam, and that's just with a couple of wee hand stitches, and it'll stop the facing flipping out at the underarm, which can be quite annoying. And then that'll be our top done. So, and this is a good time then as well just to check that you have got all your wee threads snipped off. So I have double knotted my thread. I'm going to come up from the inside here through the seam allowance and just in and out a few times on each side of the seam. Then bring it through to the other side and do the same thing again. And then I'm just going to go back through the thread here to tie it in a knot. And then that's not going to move. And then repeat it on the other side. And that's our Uzma top finished. Turn it out. So we have our lovely big thick straps, which is great obviously for wearing with different types of bras. And yeah, lovely square neckline. And quite a nice simple make, definitely one that you'll want to do to keep in mind. It's perfect for beginners. Obviously this arm size that wee bit tricky, but it gives you something, gives you a really lovely clean finish, and it's a lovely little palette cleanser or for using up smaller pieces of fabric as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and do check out our other tutorials for the Lamazi Makers Club.